picking up a
For you.
a TV cylinder?
And you, Gregorio and Ingrid Cortez. I believe you have something that I want.
Secret agents Antonio Banderas and Carla Gugino encounter a threat underwater in Spy Kids, one of the new movies we'll be reviewing this week. Plus, our internet correspondent, Michaela Pereira, will tell us about the online dreams of Steven Spielberg, Ron Howard, and Steve Martin. I'm Roger Ebert, film critic for the Chicago Sun-Times.
And I'm Richard Roeper, columnist for the Chicago Sun-Times. Retired secret agents Antonio Banderas and Carla Gugino are back in action with more than a little help from their children in Spy Kids, probably the first flick to feature bad guy soldiers made from thumbs. Writer-director Robert Rodriguez, known for gory power camera action flicks such as From Dusk Till Dawn, infuses Spy Kids with a strange hybrid of Willy Wonka fantasy and desperado machismo. Alexa Vega is Carmen and Daryl Sabra is Junie, who have no idea about their parents' glamorous and dangerous past lives.
Your parents are international spies. Good ones.
What are you talking about?
I was assigned to protect your family, but something's gone wrong.
My parents can't be spies. They're not cool enough.
That's Cheech Marin as Uncle Felix. He's one of many Rodriguez regulars who make a cameo in Spy Kids. But the bulk of the screen time goes to Carmen and Junie, who are thrust into a bizarre adventure involving a children's TV host who wants to manufacture an army of evil child robots.
It's a cool, cool world, all you little boys and girls, and some mean, nasty people want to have you for their supper. But if you follow me, you can all be free. You can all be free.
I think somebody put acid in the Kool-Aid here. Spy Kids is never dull, but it's also one of the weirdest films I've ever seen. It's too violent and scary for young children, too soft and squishy for teenagers, and ultimately too ugly and silly for adults. Spy Kids has moments of giddy surprise, but those moments are just too infrequent. My other problem is with the actors who play the children. They're simply not charming, cute, or sympathetic enough to carry the day. For me, Spy Kids was an interesting failure.
For me, Spy Kids is brilliant. It's one of the most alive and wonderful and visually inventive and beautiful and exciting movies I've seen in a long, long time. It's not too scary for kids. It's certainly not ugly. In fact, it looks great. It has all those bright colors. It has those fantastic sets. It has the great special effects. It has those weird submarines and all those rooms that kind of change shape and all the optical illusions.
So you don't think
it is really
character
fun?
You don't think a character who's got like 5 heads that are all talking at once?
No, kids are going to love that.
Villains made out of thumbs?
I love the villains made out of thumbs.
Well, you may be thumb biased after all these years, but those are some pretty grotesque.
Nothing to do with
those are pretty grotesque images for little kids
I mean,
to look at.
Kids see stuff like that all the time and a lot worse.
And the robotic children with the blue eyes that
those
shoot
are
out.
neat.
Well, not if you're a 4 or 5 year old.
Completely out of touch with kids if you think kids are going to be bothered by that stuff.
Well, I think small children will be bothered by
how
some
small,
of that stuff.
2?
And I think more like 5 or 6 year olds will be bothered by some of those images.
You shouldn't put this movie down. We live in such an arid desert of lack of creation, and Rodriguez here gives us this fantastical movie, this wonderful, amazingly beautiful film.
He throws a lot of stuff at the screen. Some of it worked for me, not enough. As I mentioned, these little kids here, I just didn't find them that interesting or compelling.
For once they were serious instead of trying to be cute little moppets.
I just don't think their acting was that good.
Okay. Our next movie is Tomcats, a gross, sick, tasteless, occasionally nauseating so-called comedy about so-called buddies. It includes the usual gags about bodily parts, fluids, orifices, and it recycles the formula about the bachelors who are afraid of Mary. Gee, we haven't seen that idea since last week's show. They make a bet. The one who stays single the longest collects on a mutual fund that they all pay into. It's grown to nearly $500,000, and Jerry O'Connell needs the money because he's lost a fortune in Vegas.
Kill me now! Kill me! Or don't.
O'Connell plots to get his last remaining bachelor buddy to marry. He's played by Jake Busey, and this is how he treats his date.
I'm okay.
Dude, we just ran over your girlfriend.
Man, you not say that word.
O'Connell recruits Shannon Elizabeth as the right girl to drag that guy to the altar, this despite the fact that in the middle of his scheme, he falls in love with her himself.
I just want to do to Kyle Brenner what he did to me.
What do you mean? You do remember Kyle?
Of course I do. He told me everything I wanted to hear, and then abandoned me on the Pacific Coast Highway with nothing more than a roll of quarters to call a cab.
There are a lot of beautiful women in Tomcats. Too bad they're humiliated from one end of the movie to the other. The film's most sickening sequence involves the removal of one of Jake Busey's testicles. O'Connell steals it from the hospital storage room and it ends up being eaten in the hospital cafeteria. I think laughter can redeem almost anything, and when it's funny, I laugh. But Tomcats isn't funny. It's just disgusting and slimy, and it degrades women. I guess it's no surprise that its writer, Gregory Poirier, is the author of See Spot Run. We should be thankful that he used up all his dog poop ideas in his last movie.
This movie is hateful toward women. You make a good point here. It's forgettable tripe, and we shouldn't even waste a lot of time talking about it. It's so bad. But it really does have a terrible attitude toward women. These guys are repulsive, yet they score time and time again with these gorgeous women who are apparently completely lobotomized. They must be to fall for these idiots.
Yeah, at least the difference between this movie and Brothers last week is that the guys last week liked women.
And respect them.
These guys, the women are just simply pawns in their selfish little bachelor mutual fund game. And apart from that, they do awful things to these women. I mean, I sat there and I felt dirty. I wasn't entertained. I felt unclean watching this movie.
This is a truly ugly movie.
It is. Coming up later in the show, Michaela Pereira is back with an internet report on web movies by Hollywood's top filmmakers. And coming up next, Ashley Judd is on the rebound in Someone Like You.
Why don't you move in with me? You're moving in with Eddie?
Yeah, the place I was supposed to move into just suddenly fell apart.
Let me get this straight. Ray and Diane are together.
Back together again.
All right, I get it. Let it go. Ray and Diane?
Yeah.
Okay, shh, doesn't matter.
The enormously appealing Ashley Judd stars as Jane, a bright, sweet, great-looking woman who works for a syndicated talk show in our next movie, Someone Like You. Yet with all that going for her, Jane is an emotional adolescent who approaches relationships with all the sophistication of a 9-year-old with a crush on one of the Backstreet Boys. Jane's yearning for a man is so desperate that she eagerly embarks on an affair with Greg Kinnear's Ray, even though Ray is her boss, and he's already in a serious relationship.
Hey, guys.
Eddie, hey.
Hey.
Wow, I just,
She's helping me pick out a shirt.
yeah.
Well, I didn't mean to intrude. No, you're not.
Not at all, please.
No.
That's Hugh Jackman as Eddie, a bed-hopping quipster who works with Jane and Ray on the show. When Ray breaks up with Jane, she needs a place to live, so she moves in with Eddie on a strictly platonic basis. They become unlikely buddies who share theories of heartbreak.
It's over. Over. Why can't you just let it go?
Because.
Because why?
Because I can't.
Why?
Because I was happy. Because if this theory is wrong, men don't leave all women. Eddie, they leave me.
Jane's obsession with the dating habits of men leads her to a research project, which she shares with her best friend Liz, played by Marissa Tomei.
This is why men can't commit. Sooner or later, we all become old cows. We are identified as already serviced. So they want to move on and find less familiar females.
Well, okay, the whole novelty thing, you mean?
Neophilia, to be precise.
That simplistic, stupid theory catapults Jane into a job as the ghostwriter for a magazine column that captivates the nation. But Jane can't reveal her identity because then the movie would have to end. Someone Like You is a wrong-headed romantic comedy that keeps sending the message that a woman's happiness depends entirely on the affections of a man. Jane and Liz live in some kind of Doris Day haze in which you're nobody unless somebody loves you. What a crock.
Boy, I agree with you on this, and I agree with you. Ashley Judd is enormously likable, and I like her so much I want her to be in a better movie. The old cow, new cow theory is based on a novel called Animal Husbandry. It reads like it was based on a very short woman's magazine article that wasn't worth reading in the first place.
Exactly.
And for them to string it out over 2 hours with all of these delayed revelations and relationships where we can see where they're going and amazing discoveries about who Greg was having the affair with. I mean, this is a movie where before it starts, we know everything these people are trying to find out.
Everything that's going to happen.
Exactly.
And this is yet another movie that really doesn't understand how TV shows work. How can they be so wrong about that? The average person who watches TV has better insight into the gears of a TV talk show than the people who made this movie.
What about Ashley Judd's big speech at the end, which nobody on television is going to let the producer come on and talk to the camera for about 9 minutes.
No.
And what's interesting, remember when Olivier won the Oscar and he started talking and everybody said, what a great speech, but then when you read the transcript, you couldn't figure out what he said? It's the same with Ashley Judd here. That speech, I don't know what she said. It says nothing. It's nonsense.
No, it just gives us an excuse to see all the supporting characters watching it going, oh my God, I can't believe it, even though a moron could have figured this out an hour and a half
with
ago.
a little tear in
there
their
you
eye.
go.
Okay, coming up next, Our internet correspondent, Michaela Pereira, is here with what's new on the web.
How about a glimpse inside the dreams of Steve Martin? I'll have that and a few other online movie reviews coming up.
Gwyneth and Steve, our struggle to have a baby.
Joining us now by satellite from San Francisco, our internet correspondent, Michaela Pereira, who's been looking at movies on the web. Hi, Michaela.
Hi there, Roger. I sure have. And making online movie news this week is the world premiere on CountingDown.com of a trio of animated shorts by some high-powered Hollywood talent, Steven Spielberg, Ron Howard, and Steve Martin. Their internet debuts feature flash animation as the filmmakers provide the narration. Now, the first two films are part of a series called Director's Dreams, created and executive produced by Howard. Spielberg's short is about an apparent obsession with food. Howard's dream is just as whimsical as he encounters a problem with actors who are a little shy about bearing all. Now, the third celebrity short is by Steve Martin, this year's host of the Academy Awards, and by coincidence, his is a fantasy set at the Oscars.
Gwyneth's and my struggle to have a baby is complicated by the fact that we have never met. When she won the Oscar for Shakespeare in Love, her feelings were made clear to me during her acceptance speech when she thanked her director, which when played backwards on a tape recorder was Navajo code talking for, "We should have a baby soon, Steve Martin."
These are fun little films and serve to remind us that auteurs are not unlike the rest of us, especially when it comes to the dreaming mind. Be sure to watch for Future Dreams by Drew Barrymore and Mike Myers. Now on to iFilm.com and another short boasting considerable star power, led by Minnie Driver. The Upgrade is a project by The Orphanage, a digital production company founded by 3 former Industrial Light and Magic employees. In this wordless comedy, Driver plays a driven and slightly delusional coach class traveler who believes her life will be somehow enriched if she can connive to travel first class during a transatlantic flight. This little film is really fun to see on the web, especially if you have a decent monitor and a good connection. The most compelling online movie I've encountered recently is one titled Genesis and Catastrophe, found also at iFilm. In a maternity ward in late 19th century Germany, a mother, weakened by laborious delivery, is distraught by the size of her tiny infant. She's lost 3 other babies already and greatly fears the rejection of her overbearing husband.
Mein Gott, dieses ist noch kleiner als Otto. Mit dem Kind ist alles in Ordnung.
Alois!
Klein sind meist zäher.
Dieses ist anders.
Heul nicht!
It's quite difficult not to feel the plight of this woman and her tiny infant. What is really interesting, though, is the information that is revealed to us at the very end of the film, which I, of course, won't give away now. Kudos to director Jonathan Liebsman.
Michaela, I liked all the movies you recommended here and mentioned here. The Spielberg movie in particular, I think, is interesting because I think it tells us a lot about him, maybe even more than he wanted to reveal, and about the size of his ego, because even his dreams are all about Spielberg reacting to Spielberg, watching Spielberg.
Right, right.
You know, the one I liked the best from the 3 directors was Steve Martin's, because I think he's the best writer of the 3, at least in these little films, and his imagination about Gwyneth Paltrow is it's very funny. And you know, that last film about the German mother giving birth, it really causes you to think after it's over, doesn't it? Yeah.
Well, you know what it reminds me of, actually? Remember that movie that we reviewed, The Terrorist? How manipulative it can be, how manipulative a movie can be. You feel one way and then suddenly realize I shouldn't be feeling that way. You won't give it away. It
really blindsided me.
And it's also really well acted, which you don't always get on these short films. Another movie that had some really good acting that I discovered is on Hypnotic.com. It's called The Fate Foretold. This is a 21-minute movie. It's a supernatural thriller by director Rick Namias, which stars Grace Zabriskie, who was in the TV show Twin Peaks, as a mysterious fortune teller. And I thought that was really well done and a great calling card for the people involved.
Go ahead, Grandma. Read my beads.
You want me to hurt the way you did the day your mother left.
I also found a nice little movie while surfing the web. It's called The Periwig Maker. It was one of this year's Oscar nominees for Best Short Films, and it's at adamfilms.com. It's a stop-motion animated movie with a very particular look, detailed and kind of enchanting, about a man who locks himself into his house during the Great Plague of London. It's based on Daniel Defoe's Journal of the Plague Year, and it's narrated by Kenneth Branagh.
And I cannot but with some wonder find that some people talk of infection being carried on the air alone.
I like the way Branagh's voice is authoritative and yet confiding there, so that we kind of share that little man's paranoia. It reminded me of Branagh's brilliant performance on the audiobook of Samuel Pepys' diary, which also contains an account of the plague years, and it's great when you can go on the web and find this stuff. It's kind of habit-forming to go from one site to another.
I also had a chance to see that film, and it's one of the strongest online films I think I've encountered. It's beautiful.
It's great to see all this big-name talent participating in these short films.
It is, and really good stuff, too. People sort of still have that idea that online films are, you know, sort of not the greatest work that you've seen, but there's some really good stuff out there.
Absolutely. Thanks, Michaela.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. All right, when we come back, 3 stories of crime and passion intersect in Amores Perros.
Our next movie is Amores Perros from Mexico, one of this year's Oscar nominees for Best Foreign Film. It's a dazzling, daring, circular, Tarantinian movie that interlaces 3 stories, all involving violence, lust, money, sex, blood, and a lot of dogs. The title translates, Love's a Bitch. The first story is about a young man who is in love with his brother's wife and has been secretly using his brother's dog to win lots of money in illegal dog fights.
No, tú no te das cuenta. Jorge tiene unos primos en Ciudad Juárez y ya me dijo que podemos llegar ahí con ellos. Ponemos un changarro de lo que sea. Tenemos lana. Nos va a ir a toda madre.
In the second story, a magazine editor leaves his wife for a supermodel, but then she's crippled as a result of an auto accident.
No le hable mucho. No le alcance. Permiso.
Ya no voy a poder jugar al fútbol.
Tranquila, tranquila.
The third story is about a street person with a double life as a hired assassin. He lives with lots of dogs. Instead of killing his next victim, he kidnaps him.
¿Qué va a hacer conmigo? No sé. No lo he pensado. Si me sueltas, te puedo dar mucho dinero.
Like Pulp Fiction, which this movie obviously resembles, the violence walks a fine line between realism and satire, and the stories all intersect at unexpected moments. What's surprising is that there are touching human moments along with the action and bloodshed. The movie was directed by Alejandro González Iñárritu, who has a big, exuberant talent and delights in taking one chance after another.
Well, you're absolutely right. I love this movie, and the Tarantino influence is obvious. The opening scene is straight out of Reservoir Dogs. It actually is really a middle scene, but there's a lot of that in this movie, and each time it's not a gimmick. It pays off. The way the stories interact, just that there's an intersection of the characters literally in an automobile accident, and each time we see it, we have more at stake in the characters, and it means more to us when they collide. It's just beautifully done.
I knew that if enough people tried to rip off Tarantino, sooner or later somebody would get it right, and that means this guy actually has a talent of his own, so we don't want to emphasize Tarantino too much.
There's a lot of originality here.
The way that the 3 sets of characters all apparently live in the same area and their lives have something to do with one another keeps it, it's not just 3 stories, it's like 3 deeper visions of the whole universe.
Each one is equal to the other. It's not like one makes the story lag. A little bit like Traffic as well in that
And there are some sequences, like when they're trying to get that dog up from under the floor. You know, the dog goes under the floor and it won't come up again. And they're going underneath there and there are rats under there. That was a great sequence.
And a great ensemble cast as well. Okay, we'll be right back. Now let's take another look at the movies we reviewed on this week's show. We split on Spy Kids. Roger thought it was brilliant. I thought it was an interesting failure. 2 thumbs way down for the hateful and ugly Tomcats. 2 more thumbs down for someone like you. Ashley Judd deserves a better vehicle. And finally, 2 big thumbs up for Amores Perros, a stunning thrill ride from Mexico.
Well, I really like that one from Mexico, but I'll tell you, I really think that Spy Kids is a seriously good movie.
I know you think that way, and I disagree with you, so there you have it.
Okay, remember you can hear our reviews at Ebert-Roeper-movies.com and read us in print at suntimes.com. And you can read about my 3rd annual Overlook Film Festival at ebertfest.com. Next week, more new movies, including Along Came a Spider, the prequel to Kiss the Girls, starring Morgan Freeman.
He's turned it into a game.
And also Blow, starring Johnny Depp and Penelope Cruz. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.